This video covers everything you need to know about an IRS CP2000 notice, what it means, why you received it, and exactly how to respond. I even have a few examples. Thanks to Robert from Phoenix, Arizona for requesting this video. I'm Katie St. Ors, Certified Financial Planner and Licensed Tax Consultant. Let's get going. This information is for educational purposes only and does not replace personalized tax advice. If you've ever opened your mailbox and found a letter from the IRS with the words "proposed amount due" printed in bold, your heart probably skipped a beat. And that reaction is completely understandable, because getting any letter from the IRS feels serious. But here's the first thing I want you to understand. A CP2000 notice is not a bill, and it's not a formal in-person audit where an agent comes to your door. It's an automated inquiry. But the IRS still expects a high level of documentation to resolve it. And knowing that distinction right from the start is going to help you think clearly and respond correctly. The CP2000 is formally called a Notice of Underreported Income, and it comes from something called the Automated Underreporter System, which is essentially a computer program that the IRS runs every year after tax season ends. And what that system does is compare the information you reported on your tax return to the information the IRS received directly from third parties. Things like your employer's W-2, your bank's 1099 INT, your brokerage's 1099-B, or a 1099 NEC from a client who paid you for freelance work. And when those numbers don't match up, the system flags the discrepancy and generates a CP2000 notice automatically. So keep that in mind. No human auditor picked your return out of a pile. This was entirely automated. Now here's something important. The IRS sends out millions of these notices every year. So if you received one, you are absolutely not alone. And receiving one does not mean you did anything wrong intentionally, because in many cases, the discrepancy is due to something as simple as a form that got lost in the mail, income that was reported on the wrong line of your return, a 1099 that was issued incorrectly by the payer, or a stock sale where the cost basis simply wasn't reported properly by your brokerage. Let's talk about what actually causes a CP2000, because understanding the root cause is the key to knowing how to respond. The most common trigger is missing income. Maybe you received a 1099 NEC for some side work and it slipped through the cracks when your return was filed. Or you received a small amount of interest income and didn't think it was significant enough to report, but the bank still sent that 1099 INT to the IRS. Another very common cause is investment income, specifically stock sales, where your brokerage reported the gross proceeds to the IRS but didn't include your cost basis. And this happens most often with what are called non-covered securities, which are shares purchased before 2011 or when you transfer shares between brokerages and the cost basis information gets dropped in the process. So the IRS sees what looks like a large taxable gain when in reality your actual gain was much smaller once you account for what you originally paid for those shares. And the fix is a properly completed Schedule D that shows the full picture. And this has become increasingly common for investors who hold multiple positions across different accounts. Another trigger that's become more frequent in recent years is digital asset activity. Cryptocurrency exchanges are now reporting transactions to the IRS. And because those 1099 forms don't always capture the full picture of a taxpayer's cost basis or holding period, the IRS computer may see unreported income where the actual tax owed is far less, or in some cases, nothing at all. Other common causes include forgetting to report a retirement distribution, a pension payment, a Social Security adjustment, unemployment income, or even a small amount of gambling winnings. All of these flow through information returns that go directly to the IRS, and any one of them can trigger a CP2000 if they aren't on your return. So now let's talk about what to do when you receive one. And the single most important thing I can tell you is this: do not ignore it and do not panic. You have options, and the process is manageable if you follow it carefully. The notice will include a response deadline, And under current regulations, you typically have 30 days from the date printed on the notice to respond, or 60 days if you live outside the United States. And that clock starts from the date on the notice, not the date you received it. So open it promptly and put that deadline on your calendar the moment you have it in your hands, because missing it can have serious consequences that we'll get to in a moment. The first thing you want to do is read the notice carefully from start to finish. And I mean carefully, because the IRS will lay out exactly which income items they believe were underreported, which third-party forms they received, and how they calculated the proposed adjustment to your tax liability. Once you understand what they're pointing to, your next step is to pull out your original tax return for that year and compare the two documents side by side. And what you're looking for is whether the income they're referencing actually is missing from your return, or whether you did report it somewhere and the IRS computer just didn't match it up correctly. From there, you have 3 paths forward, and your response determines which path you take. The first path is agreement. If you review everything and you conclude that the IRS is right, that you did underreport income, and the proposed tax amount is accurate, then you complete the response form included with the notice, you sign it, and you return it to the IRS by the deadline. And the fastest and most reliable way to do that is through the IRS Document Upload tool, which is an online portal that accepts scanned documents and gives you a confirmation number when your submission is received. And you can also respond by fax or by mail using the address on the notice. Once you've responded, you either pay the amount owed or request a payment plan if you can't pay in full. And keep in mind that interest on a CP2000 balance is calculated back to the original due date of the return, not the date of the notice. So the sooner you resolve it, the less you'll pay in accrued interest. And here's an important point. For the specific items covered in the CP2000 notice itself, you do not need to file an amended federal return because the IRS will make those corrections for you. However, there are 2 things to be aware of. First, if you made the same type of error on other tax years that haven't been flagged yet, you should consider filing amended returns for those years now to stop the interest clock from running. And second, once the IRS finishes updating your federal return, they share that information with your state's taxing authority. And most states will require you to file an amended state return to bring your state taxes in line with the federal correction. So don't assume that resolving the CP2000 federally takes care of your state obligation automatically. The second path is disagreement. And this is more common than many people realize because the IRS computer is working with incomplete information, and there are plenty of legitimate reasons why their proposed adjustment may be wrong or overstated. If you disagree, you still must respond by the deadline, but instead of signing the agreement form, you check the disagree box and you write a signed explanation of why you believe the proposed changes are incorrect, and you include copies, never originals, of any supporting documentation that backs up your position. That might be brokerage statements showing your actual cost basis, records showing you already reported the income on a different line of your return, documentation showing a 1099 was issued in error by the payer, or records establishing that a transaction was not taxable. And in cases where you're disputing the proposed amount because you have deductions or offsets that weren't on your original return and that would reduce what you owe, the IRS may want to see what's sometimes called a pro forma amended return, essentially a completed Form 1040X marked for CP2000 purposes only, attached to your response, to show them exactly how the numbers should look with the correct figures included. And you submit all of that together with the response form. The third path is partial agreement. And this one comes up when the CP2000 covers multiple items and you agree with some but not others. And in that situation, you respond by agreeing to the corrections you accept and disputing the ones you don't, with documentation for the items you're challenging. Now here's what happens after you respond. The IRS will review whatever you send them, and that review process typically takes several weeks, sometimes longer depending on volume. And when it's complete, they will either accept your explanation and close the matter, ask you for additional documentation, or issue a revised notice if they partially agree with your response. If the IRS agrees with you, they'll send you a closing letter, often called a CP2000, confirming that the issue is resolved and no additional tax is owed. And when that letter arrives, put it in your permanent tax files and keep it forever, because it is your proof that the matter was closed in your favor. But here is what happens if you do not respond by the deadline. And I want to be very clear about this because it's the most costly mistake people make with CP2000 notices. If the IRS does not hear from you, they will issue what's called a statutory notice of deficiency, which is also known as a CP3219A. And that notice is legally significant because it starts a 90-day clock during which you can either pay the proposed amount or petition the United States Tax Court to challenge the assessment. And once that 90-day window closes without action, the IRS can assess the full proposed amount, add penalties and interest, and begin collection procedures, which can include liens and levies. And all of that could have been avoided with a timely response to the original CP2000. Let's talk about a couple of real-world examples so you can see how this plays out. Imagine an investor who receives a CP2000 showing that their brokerage reported $80,000 in stock sale proceeds on a 1099-B. But the return didn't include a Schedule D. And the IRS is now proposing that the full $80,000 is taxable income. And with taxes and penalties, the proposed balance due is substantial. Now, what the IRS doesn't know, because the brokerage didn't report it, is that those shares had a cost basis of $72,000, meaning the actual taxable gain was only $8,000. And by responding with brokerage purchase records and a properly completed Schedule D showing the cost basis, the investor reduces the proposed balance from something frightening to something very manageable. Here's another example. A retiree who receives a CP2000 because a small pension distribution appeared on a 1099-R and wasn't included on the return. And in this case, the retiree agrees that it was missed, responds to the notice, pays the tax owed on that distribution, and the matter is closed without escalating to anything more serious. And that's exactly the outcome the process is designed to produce when people respond promptly and honestly. Now let's talk about how to avoid receiving a CP2000 in the future. The most important habit you can develop is to collect every single tax document you receive before your return is filed. Every W-2, every 1099, every K-1 if you're a partner or an S-Corp shareholder, every retirement distribution statement, and every brokerage statement. And make sure every one of those documents is accounted for on your return. If you're working with a tax preparer, don't assume they have everything. Provide them with every form you receive, even if you think the amount is too small to matter, because the IRS has it regardless. For investors, pay particular attention to your year-end brokerage statements and make sure the cost basis on any securities you sold is accurately reported on your Schedule D. And be especially careful if you hold older shares purchased before 2011 or if you've transferred positions between brokerage accounts, because those are the situations where basis information is most likely to get lost. If you're self-employed or work in the gig economy, track every source of income you receive throughout the year, because 1099 NEC forms don't always arrive on time or even at all, but the payer still reported what they paid you to the IRS, and the burden is on you to report it regardless of whether you receive the form. One more important note. If you receive a CP2000 and the proposed amount is large, or if the situation involves complex investment transactions, a retirement account distribution, cryptocurrency activity, or any other scenario where you're not certain how to respond, it is worth engaging a qualified tax professional, a CPA, an enrolled agent, or a tax attorney who can review the notice, assess whether the IRS's position is correct, and prepare a response that protects your interests, and under current IRS rules, you can authorize that professional to communicate directly with the IRS on your behalf by submitting a Form 2848, which is a power of attorney. The bottom line on CP2000 notices is this: they look scary, they arrive at the worst possible time, and the numbers on them can be alarming, but they are not final, and in many cases, the amount the IRS proposes is reduced or eliminated entirely once the taxpayer responds with proper documentation. And that is exactly why responding is always the right move. So if that notice is sitting on your desk right now, open it, read it carefully, check the deadline, and take action. Because the one thing you absolutely cannot afford to do is nothing. Thanks for watching. I'm Katie St. Ors. See you for my next video where I talk about everyone's favorite subject, taxes. This information is for educational purposes only and does not replace personalized tax advice.